YouTube. Can we get YouTube to come down here and film this? I think it's gonna be an epic episode.
The YouTube.
YouTube.
It's the usual tube.
Okay. Bringing the YouTube camera crew.
Live on Facebook.
Juan, what did you end up calling this?
Open Convo on Fatherhood.
Okay. I was just curious because I don't think we actually committed to a name.
And what if we do something totally different?
It would be great.
Convo could be convocation.
Turntables turn.
Conversation.
Yeah, we should have
Conversion.
named it like a synod. A local synod on fatherhood.
That's right.
A synodality of fatherhood.
That's right. That's right.
Can we change it? Is
that
it
may
too
be-
late to change it?
That may be the episode name.
Right. Okay, good.
The synodality on fatherhood.
Yeah.
There you go. It's good to be with you guys. It is. It is good.
We're on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass.
Welcome to the Catholic Command Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. Happy Advent to all. Adam Minahan here, sitting in studio with David Niles. We have Juan on the buttons, just tapping away. I think he do you think he does? What is this? The chicken peck method of tapping the buttons?
Yeah?
Mucho, yeah. That's how they do it in Venezuela.
They're just the.
It's the traditional Venezuelan method.
Well, he is a man of tradition, so I would
Yes.
expect nothing less. We also have a
Yes.
good friend of ours, David Williams from. He's a friend of ours, but he's also the creator or co-creator of
Co-creator.
Saint Cards. It's great to have you here, man.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it, David. Thank you for having
This
me.
is number 3 or 4?
I think this is number 4.
4, yeah.
At
it's
least
number
number
4.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been about a year and a half or so. So I was like, yeah, we gotta hang out again.
Yeah,
we gotta get together.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you messaged us that you were in town, I was excited.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Book it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it
Oh,
very
man.
much. It's good to be with you. And Juan, too, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Look at him.
I
Two
also,
fingers.
well,
Just
Juan, I'm
making it
also
happen
glad to
over
be
there.
with you here today.
Yeah. So what have you been up to? What's been going on? What's going on with Saint Cards?
What is the update?
What is the update? Yeah, so St. Cards is going great. We've got the final collection of expansions that we are in the midst of producing right now. And so the long-awaited Marian Apparitions expansion, which is going to have a rosary, game board that gets attached to the main board for St. Cards, and then so your jewels will go around the rosary chain, and then you've got all of the great saints that saw Our Lady during their lifetime, and obviously the apparitions themselves, the approved apparitions, and the saints that are associated with those. So that's like, for me, the crown jewel of the big effort to get these out. But along with that, we got the Royals and Soldiers expansion, we got the liturgy expansion, we got all sorts of other things that are in this final collection. So it's like one of those, when the Lord, kind of puts a seed in your heart, which was, again, now back in 2009, 2010, and it's now 12 years later or so, and to kind of see all of it, finally get out and finished up, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. So so we're running the gauntlet, getting those pieces put together, and then along with that, store's still open, and we're still getting base sets out to new families every single day, and
So the
expansions from there.
30-second pitch of what Saint Cards is for
Yeah,
those
for
who
people who don't know.
Yeah, so St. Cards is it's a game that you can play with your family, or you can play solitaire version that helps you learn facts about the lives of the saints. And so the more you play, the more you get to know. So that all the symbols and the colors that are on the cards themselves, it's kind of like if you played Uno before, you've got a leg up, right? So you basically just find similarities in the card that's turned up with the cards that's in your hand. And the more similarities, the more matches you make. Then, if you get 3 matches during the game, you get 3 treasure, and then it goes to the next person. And then, when you're out of cards, the game's over, and whoever's got the most treasure wins. And then they gather all the treasure at the table, and then give it to Jesus, and there's a Jesus card that's provided as well. So
It's the best part of the game.
it is the best part of the game, and
At least
and
it
that
is
is
when
my
you win.
wife's. It's my wife's invention, which is perfect because she's imagining like, okay, we want them to have the satisfaction of winning, but at the same time understand that everything is for Jesus. So then everybody still can contribute all of the jewels that they've gathered to Jesus via the person who won. And so in the end, every single piece of treasure that's gathered gets
Very body of Christ.
It is
you
very
know?
body of Christ.
We're all playing on the same team.
and
in
we're all
the
playing
end.
the same team. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that's St. Cards in a nutshell,
Okay.
for sure.
So I love the game St. Cards. My wife and I play it. It's a great 2-person game, right? Our kids are now getting old enough where we can start to teach them card games, but over the years, it's like, well, they're just not very good strategists at 4 years old. You know,
There can be strategy. in
There,
the game
no,
of
there.
St. Cards,
Oh,
for
there's
sure.
strategy. in
There's a
St.
lot of
Cards.
strategy.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
right.
But when you're trying to teach them spades and they're playing, they're starting out with the queen of spades, you're like,
Well,
okay, are you
all
even
right.
trying?
No.
Yeah.
Are you even trying?
That
Yeah.
one's worth a lot.
But so we would want to play a game, but and there's not a whole lot of like 2-player card games.
Right.
I mean, it's just
That's right.
hard to find. So St. Cards is a game that you can easily play. Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
what is, because you can't play all of the expansions at the same time.
You're right. It's not recommended, but you can.
You can.
You can, and it's a lot, right? So we usually recommend if you got an expansion, play it with the base game, one expansion at a time. If you want to like throw some extra spice in there, little cayenne pepper or something like that,
Yeah.
play another expansion in there. We've done them all before just to test it, and it is possible, but it is a lot to keep track of.
So you have done it.
Oh, we've done it. Oh yeah, it's a lot, and and we have these epic games where we'll stack them up, a good 300 saints deep, and we just go for hours. But one of our family favorites is the Heaven Hold'em expansion, which is basically the Christianized or Christianese version of Texas Hold'em poker,
Yeah.
except it's called Heaven Hold'em,
Yeah.
of course.
Naturally.
Instead of it's a turn your hearts to Jesus or the river of life, right? Rather than just the river.
Love it.
So we
Love
totally flip the game around. But that's really fun too to kind of throw in a little a very friendly betting version of the game as well. But all sorts of ways to play. But yeah, we recommend one expansion at a time added onto the base game for the ultimate experience. But then if you really want to go for it, you can go for it.
And it's like a hack learning. Like, what's the learning method?
Yeah, so we like the Greek method, and St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Albert the Great talked about the loci method, which is the Greek memorization technique, where you basically have different objects that are showing up in the same space. It could be a room, it could be on in this case like on a card, and so you remember the symbol, right, that's associated with that saint, and as soon as you know what the symbol means, then every single time you think of that saint. Like if I tell ask my kids, what feast month is St. Francis de Sales celebrated, and they'll say January because they close their eyes and they see the symbol for January
On the card.
On the card,
Right.
right? And then you've got immediate geniuses, right? Catholic geniuses in the household, and you just use just a ancient Greek method of memorization.
We
that's
just
all.
play a lot of games.
We just play a lot of games. That's how we roll.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a little bit of a hack because the more you play, the more familiar you become with the colors. And so then all you're doing in your brain is sourcing the colors and the symbols. And as soon as you know what those colors and symbols mean, then that locks it in. So I can ask the 5-year-old, and now he's 7, so now he's a 7-year-old, is so-and-so doctor of the church? And you can answer yes or no because it's either blue or it's not blue. So if it's blue, it's a doctor. Boom.
We have a house rule.
got
If you play a saint on their feast day, extra 3 treasures.
Extra 3 treasures. There are some families that do 10.
See,
Just so
we
you know.
thought about, because it's like, all right, it's a rare
These
thing.
are house rules.
Okay,
These are
we
house
thought
rules.
about doing more.
Right.
But the thing is, if you get an extra 10 treasures, the game's over.
It's over.
All right?
That's
Especially
right.
if you're just Pamela
It's
and
very
I
true.
playing. It's just 2 of us. Okay, like
10
not going
I
to
think
make up a
I-
difference of 10.
That's right. As the game moderator, I would say 3 to 5 is going to keep the game in range for
Right.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. But it's a lot of fun. And again, the whole idea is if we can bring the family together at the table, and it's obviously centered on the faith, but it's fun too. It's not just
It is fun.
We're sitting there, and there's a lot of strategy. So you get a bunch of guys together at the table, and
Yeah.
yeah,
There really is.
it
In the
could get-
beginning, you're like, all right, mapping out your plan. I'm going
Right.
to pair up these saints together,
right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a good time.
saintcards.com.
Saintcards.com. And actually, for those that are watching this episode, heretofore, I will never change this code. ManShow9 we'll give you an extra $9 off on our website. So we've already
Nice.
got discounts and free
Nice.
shipping and all that. But Man Show 9, all capital letters, the number 9, MANSHOW 9, an extra $9 off. We won't turn it off.
Is
We'll
there
just
going to
keep
be
that
a
rolling.
Cyber Monday sale?
Well, there is a Cyber Monday sale, but it's not as good as the Man Show 9 code.
All right.
So put in the Man Show 9
You're
code.
welcome.
Cyber-
Unless maybe you're ordering like $1,000
Cyber-
worth.
then give us a call.
Yeah.
give us give us a call. We can
Forget the website.
we can
Call us.
we can hook you up. Yeah, but there's percentages that are offered on that website. I think our Cyber Monday deals is $7 off. So we upped our game with you guys.
All
So,
right.
Man Show 9. We'll
Show
get you
9.
the best deal on the planet. So there you go. Synccards.com.
Nice. We're going to talk about fatherhood today.
Yeah, we are.
But the last time you were on, I think your wife was either like almost about to pop or like just delivered.
Happened. I think just
Yeah.
delivered. Yeah, the
Okay.
little guy was just welcomed into the world. I think last time we were on. So he is now a good 18 months strong, plus a few days, doing great. Yeah,
Getting into some trouble, I imagine.
You know, he's doing great. He's a really good politician.
Oh.
So he's not getting into too much trouble. So he's
right.
realized, like, if we say no, he goes immediately to, hurt baby. Like, okay, I get it. You're trying to protect me. Because he has all these siblings. So there's just fun waiting for him to his left and right all the time. So
Right.
he's not really, if he gets keyed in on something, we're like, ooh, I don't know about that. He's like, hurt baby? I'm good with that because now I can go, hang out with the other kids. So
I got options.
we got options. He showed up to a big birthday party every day. It's kind of the
Right.
way he is. So he's living the dream. He's
and
doing
I'm
pretty
sure
good.
he's
Yeah, yeah.
very popular.
This
The baby is always popular when they're a baby.
yeah. There's been a few moments of his life where he's been alone, like where he will wake up and nobody's up yet, and he just walked. Kendall and I will still be resting, and he'll just hop off the bed and walk out, and it's just him and the dog, and he just doesn't know what to do.
Like
It's
Macaulay
just
Culkin in
we've
Home
got
Alone,
to
yeah.
wake everybody up. There's
Yeah.
something that's not right here. So he likes the noise. He likes the
He's a boy.
He's a boy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he's a boy, and then he likes he's like, where is everybody?
Where is-
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get this going.
Yeah,
So,
because you have like a 17-year-old is your oldest.
yep, oldest.
And then
yep.
what's the age of?
It goes 17, and then Jamin's almost 16, and then Eleni's 14, and then Bennett's 12, Vincent's 10, Hudson's 7, and then we've got Everett at a year and a half. So just
Nice.
plugging along, doing great. It's
Nice.
it's a big blessing.
Awesome.
Lots of boys.
The Williams name is not going to die today.
Not today.
No.
Not today. We're gonna keep this thing going.
Yes.
That's right. Grandpa
Love it.
would be proud.
Love it. All right, so when we get back, we're gonna continue talking about fatherhood. We didn't even mention that we were drinking a little bit of Glenmorangie.
We'll have to mention that.
14 year on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I really like it.
It's like a little spicy.
Cast
Has a
finish.
little a little spice to it.
Yeah.
So
Highland.
David, knowing so many saint names,
Mhm.
how is the debate for like choosing a baby name?
It's
You know,
hard.
It's like
It's super hard. Yeah, because you do. Yeah, like we spend a lot of time with the names, and then we buy all the baby name books, and so like Everett was cool because the word Rhett means carpenter, and then Eve. So we got Eve and the carpenter for Everett, right? And then
serious?
yeah, that's kind of
Come
fun.
on.
That's kind of
know
fun.
that.
That's kind of fun, right? And then we have Dominic is his middle name.
It's a Catholic hack.
Yeah, it's a Catholic hack.
is a
It's
Catholic hack.
total Catholic hack. So yes, you have Eve and Rhett, and then Dominic, which is our Lord,
Right.
Dominus. So we've got the Holy Family. So he's got the Holy Family name. Yeah, but it took a while. It took a good 8 months and 3 weeks to figure that one out. Just in time. Just in time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think if we had a young lady, we would have been way early with the name.
Oh
pick.
yeah, it's way anybody
You know.
can come up with 2 good names for a boy or 2 for a girl. Once
Right.
you get past 2 of one gender,
Right.
now you're like, well,
I
I,
know,
don't
yeah.
know. I mean, can
Right.
we reuse John? I
Well,
mean,
and there's compatibility
that's
with
what-
the
I mean-
other names, and you list it out, you write it out, and you're like, okay, does that jive,
Right.
and what does it sound like?
and then you end up like having accidental themes, and it's like, well,
No.
we didn't try to have that theme,
That's-
but
that's us.
do we keep it going?
We have like
you
all
know?
Luke, Jude, Anna, Leo, like all these short, names. It's like now we can't have like a Alphonsus or
or a Maximilian.
yeah.
you could throw. It would be great.
I'm gonna just throw this out again. I think Moses Minahan is a sweet name.
Ooh, you can go Mo.
Like
Mo for short.
Jesus is a prophet like Moses. I mean, like Moses is he's like
He is.
one of the most important biblical figures.
Some even call him the new Moses. Yeah.
He was also super humble.
He was
super
the
humble.
humblest.
Yeah, he was super humble.
I would know because there's a group of us.
All right, let
Hold on, David. Could you rearrange your mic a
Sure.
little bit more
Secret
like?
society.
This way?
Yeah, and then a little bit more like. Hold
Like
on,
this?
Just do it.
You want me to? Oh yeah, I can bring it up. Like so?
You turn your
Oops.
head.
You're fine.
It's more like that.
Like that.
Because when you're turning at them.
Yeah.
yeah, because you're looking. Yeah,
Sounds a lot better.
sweet. Mucho Juan. This is why we pay you the big bucks.
That's right.
Mucho.
They're like blown
They're
up. and
really,
they can-
really big. Yeah.
What are we talking
can't-
about?
They're
His-
the big bucks.
the
Oh, the
big
big
I mean,
bucks.
They're not
You
worth
can't even-
anything.
I don't
can't
even
even-
know what you're talking about.
You couldn't even put it in
I've never
his
seen it.
wallet.
Yeah.
I mean, they're worthless, but
Yeah.
they are
They're
big.
big bucks.
Yeah.
That's right. We got it on Etsy. Got a big
Wish.com.
wish.com.
It's Monopoly at the Big and Tall Center. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles. With Adam Minahan, our special guest, Mr. David Williams,
Good to see everybody.
co-creator of several children and a game called Saint Cards, which we've been previously talking about. We did not talk about the whiskey that we've been drinking today, which we should talk about because it's delicious.
Yes.
It is.
Today we're enjoying the Glenmorangie Quinta Rubin, the 14 year. We were discussing earlier. We've had a Quinta Rubin on the show. We don't remember if it was the 14 year or not, but this 14 year, I'll tell you, is really nice.
I don't believe
very
that we.
good.
I think we had the unaged, undocumented aged.
Like no age
one.
statement on it
Yeah.
before. Okay.
So this one's really it's
very good.
really good. Very smooth. Has this spicy.
Yeah, that was the first thing that hit me. It's like, whoa, that's a little spicy.
Yeah, on the back end of it, it's really nice.
Got some like peppercorns in there. Yeah, I mean,
It's really good.
but it's also, it's finished. Is it Oloroso? What is it?
No, in rum or port cask. It's port.
Oh,
cask.
port. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So,
Port
but
cask
anyway,
finish.
so it's got that sweetness from the port.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
It's-
just really
I
nice.
think it's
very
about $50, so very manageable.
Oh wow,
Very manageable.
that's a
Good
great
for the
deal.
price. It's very
That
good.
is
That's a
very good.
fantastic deal.
So anyway, so we're gonna talk about fatherhood. You suggested let's throw out question and answers.
Yeah. Let's have a sit-in.
let's just try to figure out what the heck are we what the heck are we doing as
What are we
fathers?
supposed to do?
Yeah,
Right.
because we're trying.
We
There's
are
no
we
doubt.
are trying, and I think that's probably, you could argue, the biggest thing, right, that we can offer is the dedication, to try, knowing full well that we are not perfect, but by golly, we're gonna try, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's something, I don't know if you guys have picked up this book, Living Beyond Sunday, or not.
Is that by Ascension Press?
It is by Ascension Press. Yeah, and this is they did not ask me to say this. There's actually 4 authors for this book: Adam and Haley Minahan and David and Pamela Niles. It's a great gift, by the way.
sounds
Thank
familiar.
you, thank you all for writing this with your
Oh, sure.
brides. It's really great. First of all, I just want to compliment you all in Ascension on the size of the book. It's a really great length, and it's also a great size, so you can put it in like a pocket or a purse, and in my case, a pocket. In my wife's case, a purse, and it's very toteable, which is really helpful because the way that y'all arrange this makes it nice and bite size, right? But one of the sections that really struck me as I was going through it was just of course, when you talk about protection and provision, those are words almost always that are associated with, good fatherhood, right? We protect, right? We provide, but that establish, right, really hit me hard. And I feel like that's as we're trying, we're trying to protect. We do everything we can to protect. We do everything we can to provide. And a lot of the time we are, having conversations with our spouses, and we're having conversations with our kids to that, look at how sacrificial I'm being right now, or daddy's working really hard so that, we can have money in the account so that we can do this and that and the other thing and all that. But then that established step, like, was really convicting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved what you all had to write about it because, establishment is that third tenet. It kind of, without establishment, the protection, the provision doesn't have anywhere to go. Like, what are we actually building here, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're worthless, kind of.
They're worthless,
I'm gonna
right?
protect and provide for my kids so they can grow up to be a terrible person.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
no, that's not what we're doing. you know?
Or even just grow up so that they can get to college, or grow up so they can be successful in the workplace, or
Right.
be able to do whatever they want to do. It, like, that's an endless game.
Mm-hmm.
It's an endless, proposition if that's all that we are.
Which,
raising them
everybody
for, right?
desires those things. I mean, you want your kids to be successful.
That's right.
But hopefully they're being successful at good things.
That's right.
Ordered towards the ultimate good.
That's right. That's right. And the ultimate goal for us is for our entire families to be in heaven, right? In glory for all eternity. So that's the ultimate prize. And you could argue that whatever we establish here on earth as fathers should be to that end, should be focused solely on that end.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to your point, though, we're here, we're trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not perfect. Then that is for sure. But boy, are we trying,
Yeah, and I think actually the establishing part is the hardest of the three. The first two seem very natural for just men in
Right.
general to
That's right.
provide and to protect.
Yeah, and you know how to do those things. Like,
Right.
they're very action items.
Yep.
Yes.
I can check those boxes.
Right.
Easily.
But the establishing part comes with very difficult choices to make.
Yeah.
Including, allowing your kids to fail,
Right.
which you don't want to do. You don't want to see them fail, or making them realize that, okay, there is adversity. How do I deal with this adversity? And then
Right.
how do I grow and overcome this and have the fortitude to continue moving forward, even when I am those are tough things to do.
Yeah.
They're easy to talk about.
That's right.
Very tough to do whenever you see your kid struggling and I can help him. I
That's
can
right.
help him right now.
That's right.
But you choose almost not to, for the sake of letting him push through.
Yeah.
For the to grow in virtue.
That's right. That's right. And I think the what hit me between the eyes here, not that I'm Goliath or anything,
You are rather tall.
but I just realized that illusion is anytime it just hit me between the eyes, it's like you're acknowledging your Goliath in that moment, right? But the one thing that hit me between the eyes was recognizing that, like we talk all the time about, having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. We should and we ought to. Our personal relationship with Our Lady, with the saints. And then the challenge for me, especially this last year, has been, do I have a personal relationship with every single one of my children? Can my children say, ooh, I have a personal relationship with my Father? So yeah, we're providing. Yeah, we're protecting. We're doing everything that we can. But then that establishment piece, for me anyway, I guess one of the takeaways is like, ooh, am I doing a good job establishing a focused and personal relationship with child number one that is distinct from my relationship with child number two, child number three, et cetera, right? And so the bigger the family gets, the busier things get, the more difficult it is sometimes to establish that relationship. But I think that's another piece that was convicting for me in the midst of it all too, and just realizing like, hey, yeah, I'm one walk away, or I'm one conversation away from establishing something with this child that is something that we have. That's a connection point. And obviously the most important of all is that personal relationship you have with your spouse. But then along with that, how are we establishing that connected relationship with each of our children too?
Yeah.
And I know that that's a work in progress for me. It's not perfect, but
Right.
but it's something I'm trying for.
Yeah.
Right?
So on that note, I want to ask you this question, because this is something that I'm really working on right now, and I feel like I'm losing this battle. Like, this is like something I'm not doing well. About having, you want to balance with your kids your role as disciplinarian. My kids are still young. My oldest is 7. So, like, I'm still in the disciplinarian mode, kind of on a day-to-day basis, right? Where they're
Right.
not so much with my 7-year-old, not as much as, with my 3-year-old or actually I don't have a 3-year-old, but my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old.
Right.
But balancing the role of disciplinarian and also like keeping lines of communication open, right? how do you like keeping that where it's like, well, I want them to be able to tell me anything,
Right.
but also they need to like face consequences.
When they tell you certain
I mean,
things.
like when they do certain things, right?
Right.
What advice do you have for me and for anybody about like,
forget everybody else, just for you.
yeah, I mean, actually,
Right.
forget. Yeah, I actually don't care about everybody else. It's
Doesn't
like,
matter.
it's
Yeah.
like, you
This
guys
is
are
for
on your
you.
own. Yeah, this is for me. Nobody listen. Okay, but like, I want to make sure that my children feel like they can come up, that they can truly tell me anything, that they don't have to hide anything from me, right? What have you learned? Because I really look up to you as a father,
Yeah.
and so what advice would you have on that front?
Any advice I give you, I have to give to myself because it's
Sure.
the same thing.
I do
You
that
know,
all the time.
It is,
on this show.
but it is like it's not by any means coming from a place of even close to perfection by any means. But I have noticed, especially as they get older, that my inclination to associate my identity as a good father, and my inclination to tie that directly to the way that they speak and behave and act increases as time goes on. So if I don't watch it, right, the way that they act, the way that they speak, the way that they behave, I sometimes will associate, my identity and who I am with the output or the product, so to speak. And I end up objectifying them when I do that, right?
Uh-huh.
So if, so those moments of like, hey, you need to do this because I told you to, and I'm your father, and remember the fourth commandment. Like,
Right.
come on, that the hellfire or brimstone approach. Regrettably, there's been too many of those moments where I take it personally whenever there's a moment of indiscretion, especially with my sons, right? But as they get older, the question that you're asking is the question, because if we don't do a good job opening up those lines of communication, right, what we could potentially do, much to our chagrin, would be to sever that inclination that they would have to want to talk to us about anything. And that's really
Right.
the goal, is how do we maintain authority and maintain that sense of honor and dignity that we have as fathers, but also relay to them, hey, we are imperfect just like you. We're working on things just like you, without sacrificing the honor that's due to the office, right? It is not an easy thing. What I have found from an advice perspective, this is just due to advice that I've received from fathers who have kids that are 20 years older than mine, is we have to do a good job listening. And there's three things that I heard from a close friend of mine in the St. Louis area that I rely on to kind of help center me, and I can share those on the other side here.
Okay.
Good. Well, this is, that piggybacks right off of the establishing part, right?
Right.
Establishing these relationships. You have to have those relationships in order for them to tell you and for you to be able to listen to what they're actually having, going on in their life.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll be right back.
This scotch
That was
is
a
just
good drink.
It's just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Hey,
you guys
let me
have-
switch
Had you
headphones.
guys heard of this book?
Barely.
I forgot to run it by you before I
Yeah.
brought it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Barely.
That's just the charging.
Yeah, that's just, what's wrong with those headphones?
I just don't like. I mean, they just look weird on the.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if they were shorting out or something.
They're working.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's several different aspects of the establishing part that you could take from that. It's interesting that that's the angle that you took, because
Yeah, you could take it lots of places.
right,
For sure.
yeah. Establishing a relationship with each child, establishing them so that they go and make disciples of men and
That's right.
of all nations.
Oh, there's a
third
one of these. Do you have 3 of these?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Would you like one of them?
No, I'll just use one of these. Is it plugged in?
Because like you can you can protect and provide all you want.
That's right.
But if you actually overprotect and overprovide, then
Yeah.
the establishing
you
part
inhibit the establishment.
you
Right.
inhibit the establishing to where they don't know how to function and they don't know how to go out and make disciples of all nations.
That's right.
It's very similar to the last chapter of our book is on hospitality, right? So the family, you have to have it ordered so that it can go out and make
Yeah.
disciples. Well, it's the same thing as a father. Like you have to have the other ones ordered in order so that way they are established to go out and make disciples.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and And what are we setting up? Like that word "establish" is such a great word. It's like, what is going to last beyond you, right? What's going to go?
I like that way of thinking.
What's going to go? What's going to go even further than your own life, right? I mean, and so are we giving them all of ourselves so that they can take they can do even more than what we've done, right? So there's this acceleration, image.
Yeah,
that you
I
get.
pray that my kids are way more Catholic than I am.
That's right.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Adam, I pray that all the time.
that my kids are
That
way
your
more
kids end up more Catholic than you. I mean,
Thanks, man.
That is.
what a great. I'll take it.
That's right.
I know you thought that was a slight, but I'm totally taking that.
You don't pray that for me?
Yeah.
I don't. You know what? That's that's my fault.
I'll add it in, David. Sorry about that.
That is my.
I'll pick it up for
My
him.
bad.
Thank
I'll
you.
pick up the slack. It's okay.
I thought we were best friends.
You think you know a guy?
You think you know a guy?
35 years.
That's right.
We're both 36, just so you know.
Yes.
Happy birthday
Thank you.
to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right, so you were gonna share 3 things.
3 things. Thank you.
Listo?
Listo.
Listo. Andiamo.
Welcome back to the Catholic Command Show. Sitting here talking about fatherhood with our good friend David Williams, co-creator of Saint Cards. Before the break, you were going to give us 3 things
Yeah.
that you wanted to...
Talking about open lines of communication.
Open lines of communication, yeah.
With
an
your children.
establishment.
Yeah. So first, this one's going to come across. So again, this is advice that I received from a good friend of mine in the St. Louis area, who has raised 4 wonderful children, who have remained. Just one of those faithful families that you're like, okay, I want to.
Who it worked.
I want to do
Whatever you
whatever
did,
there.
I want to rinse and repeat
Could we do that,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So I similar question I asked him. So I'll just share with you what he said, since I'm still in the middle of the third quarter here, or whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
Don't ever yell upstairs for your kids to come downstairs. And he says, let me explain.
Oh,
man.
I
do
know.
that.
I do that all
I know.
the time.
I know.
Every day, maybe twice.
And he said, let me explain. And I'm already guilty 17 times yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But especially as they get older, right? The dignity of their work, right? Undoubtedly, they're working on their school. They're working on their projects. They might be cleaning. They might be fooling around. Doesn't matter what they could be doing. Whatever, Nerf war. Doesn't matter. But it's a slow and it's a calm walk up the stairs, and the dignity of a nice knock, or hey, here in about 5 minutes we're going to have dinner. So I just want to give you the heads up so that you can prepare to come on down. Nice, calm, cool, and collected, right? And so he says within that is what you're communicating as a father is, hey, I am respecting your time. In other words, it's not just my time that's important, but your time is important too. And the way that you manage your day, the way that you manage your time, eventually you're not going to have me around to bark orders and tell you when it's time to eat or when it's time to pray. So especially for our sons, right, as they grow into virtue, right, and they're leading their home, if they don't get the opportunity to practice that, and you don't have an opportunity as a father to validate their time. So that's a piece of advice number 1 is don't yell upstairs. Right.
I mean,
I know.
Damn
I
it.
know.
You know
And
what?
guilty.
These are these
Guilty.
little things
right?
that.
you know what? Sometimes you hear something and you just you just know that that's true.
But
Like,
but that's
like,
the thing. That's the way I felt too. It's like, oh, I know that's true. But again, the rationale behind it is, too, that you're expressing control. Like, why are you making an argument out of something that's not even an argument? You're raising your voice, and there's not even a fight.
What
And
about
so then-
ringing a bell?
Ringing a bell, like the whistle from Sound of Music.
We ring. We have a nice ding ding
Ding, ding.
But the thing is, it doesn't. It still doesn't do what you're talking about. Like, hey, I'm respecting. Because
Yeah.
the bell has come down now.
Right. It's
just more.
And again, this is
it's more
like-
of a. It's a polite way.
This is
to yell.
That's
you know?
right. But this is like the dad of the 15, the 16, the 17-year-old. Like you're cranking away, working on your ACT prep, or my second son has got a business that he runs, and so he's working on his financials, and I mean he's he's working.
Yeah,
right?
he's got a lawn care business.
He's got a lawn care business. He's rocking it, right?
He's making it happen.
He's making it happen. So he's establishing, right? It's back to this word, right? So then am I helping with the establishment by just interrupting and saying, stop what you're doing right now. Whatever you're doing can't be nearly as important. Now, again, there's emergencies and there's all sorts of stuff like, hey, there's a problem and, whatever. That's different. But if it's the regular rigmarole of the day, like the yelling for the response, right, is the first point. So that was like,
if you're conditioned, if you always go upstairs, if you do that, when you do yell, I
It's
imagine
conditioned,
you get
there's an issue.
a very prompt response because oh, Dad's
We don't
like
do
he's
this.
something must be wrong. We better go.
Right. So the second piece of advice is that your children deserve to have you remain in the position of the hero for the rest of their lives. So the next piece of advice is, it is not your duty and obligation to share with them all the junk and trash of the decisions that you've made in your lifetime. So sometimes that's a propensity for us. It's like, well, if I'm going to open up lines of communication with my children, especially as they get older, I've got to be vulnerable and I need to wade them through everything that I've ever confessed in the confessional.
Right.
And so again, from my background, the way I was raised is like full confession to all people at all times, and that way, and when I say my background, that's that's my prior to coming to the church background kind of a thing. But what happens in the confessional stays in the confessional for the priest, and ought to be that way for us as men too, to a degree, right? Because to kind of share everything. Hey, well, just to be transparent with you, 17-year-old son or 22-year-old son. This is exactly what I shared with the priest, can also steal away from the dignity and the God ordained sanctity of that sacrament, right? And so it doesn't mean that you're not sharing with them struggles with pride or impurity or anything like that, but not at the level, right, of detail that you would in the confessional.
Right.
Now that's interesting because, again, we're talking about being transparent and making sure that we're opening lines of communication. So it's a balance. And so that piece of advice was interesting for me too, because it's like, okay, well, how do we then create these open lines, but at the same time reserve the dignity of the sacrament of reconciliation? Are there ways that we as fathers can still be vulnerable and can still indicate, hey, we don't have it all together, but by golly, we are trying. There are ways to communicate that, and the same discretion that you would use in a public speech or even right here on a show, we can still talk about substantial things without having to get into the nitty gritty details of everything. And that's a second piece of advice too. With your children deserve to be able to keep you and your wife in those seats of honor, in their from their perspective. So that was another.
I think
piece
that
of
is fantastic advice. Because I do think that there are a lot of people who think, oh, I need to be completely honest with my children, and open and volunteer a lot of things, that
doesn't necessarily need.
That they don't need to know. That doesn't mean that at some point in their lives, as they transition into adults and maybe are struggling with things that you don't, if they ask you about certain things, like maybe there is a situation where you do tell them, hey, actually when I was younger, I made these mistakes, when they're old enough to understand, and in a way that it still doesn't sacrifice that, oh, Dad's a hero, because you can have that conversation where they have context through their own life experience of, hey, Dad made mistakes and he overcame them, and that is why he's a hero. So that's still possible. But yes, I think that if you talk about some things about your past, and I have a lot of these things in my own past. Yep. If I talk about them,
I'm talking a lot
with my kids.
Yeah. That's right.
It has a way of stealing their innocence.
That's right.
Because their innocence, in some ways, they get from me.
Right.
That like, I'm good, I do good things, right? And so they strive for good things too, because that's what I do.
That's right.
And so if all of a sudden I'm not good, neither are they. And
that's right.
They will kind of imbibe that from me. And so.
Well, and there's an element too of allowing the Lord's forgiveness and the sacrament of reconciliation to actually have its effect. He has forgiven you.
Right.
So then can you forgive yourself? And can you show that to your children that you have forgiven,
That's hard. That's
right?
hard to do sometimes.
So that's that piece of advice number 2. And then the final piece is that our job, and back to establishment, right, is not to throw knowledge at them. It's not to throw, these oodles of wisdom at them and say, hey, read this book and that. But the whole word educare, right, is the drawing out. Like education is where it comes from, is the drawing out and to reveal to them what God has placed there on the inside, right? So then from an establishment perspective, we can establish those lines of communication and that personal relationship with each of the children, whether it's public praise in front of the other siblings and saying, hey, for this child, they really exhibited, character quality X today. And I just wanted to point that out to, just to express my appreciation, or if there's other means of drawing that out, but to be able to show them and be able to pull in and show them, hey, this is what I see in you, right? Is massively valuable, because it's really that we want them to latch onto. The world's going to throw all sorts of things at them to say, hey, this is who you are. This is what you should be striving for. This is the way to define happiness, define success. But then you can, as the father in particular, with your wife and your children, can draw and say, hey, this is what I see. This is the brilliance of the way God's made you and its effect that it's having on all of us. And you need to know that this is the reason why we're grateful that you're here. And so creating that culture in your home, and again, this is coming from a guy that is massively struggling each and every day to do this, right? So, but I know this piece of advice is huge as well to implement in the home. The more that we do that, the more the culture shifts to that culture of encouragement, and then they have something that they can latch onto, right? And
this
so
is all speaking the virtues.
It's speaking.
language
It's exactly right.
speaking
You're speaking the language of the
language.
virtues.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's my answer to your question. Is those three pieces of advice from a good friend of mine.
That is, I just love that. I'm so glad you shared that with us. Another thing that I've been thinking about on the same sort of subject. So my oldest is she has strong emotions. Okay, it's just part of her temperament, and I know that God has given her these strong emotions. He has a plan for her in order to, whether she's going to be a defender of the innocent, or whatever it is. But in the meantime, it's sort of a challenge, to deal with when she's 7.
Right.
But so sometimes she'll have she gets in these moods, and I really want her to open up. And, I feel like if I just come in, no, you can tell me, that's not going to work. I need to, how much, especially you have older kids. So it's at 7, there's really nothing serious that she has going on in her life. Okay. Everything is pretty meaningless, honestly.
Right.
It's trivial anyway. It's not meaningless. It's trivial. But, you have teenagers, they might actually have some serious things that they're doing right or wrong, right? Or a 17-year-old. So if you notice, and we can talk about this on the other side of the break, but if you notice, they have something on your heart, I'm not going to ask them, I'm going to let them come to me versus asking them, do you want to talk about it?
You're
you're
active or you're permissive.
Right.
Will?
Yeah, exactly. There's a balance here, because I want them. It's please, let's talk about it. Just, anyway, it's like the Father, I just know in heaven, yearns for us, please bring this to me. I just want to talk about this,
That's right.
Anyway.
So balancing that patience.
Yes,
piece.
on the other side of the break, we'll be right back.
Well, I mean, I don't know how hard this is, dude, with God speaking directly to Elizabeth.
Yeah. I mean,
Found that out tonight.
does he?
Yes. Yes.
Tell me.
Well, I mean, God told Elizabeth that your dad is supposed to be a nun in Oklahoma City.
That my dad is supposed to be a nun.
In Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, Elizabeth, do you think you could have misinterpreted that? She looks at him and goes, just read your book. He was like, hey, I had a book. She was like, I'm done with this. Just read your, just you know what?
Papa.
I can't even.
I can't even believe you would ask.
Yeah,
me
I
that.
can't even get into this. Just read your book. Never mind.
Yeah.
Apparently she's been, she told Santi, Santi, God told me that we're going to get married.
Well, hey.
And then Santi
Wait,
goes.
that was a recent thing? I mean, she said that a long time ago.
This is what Lady Pamela was saying this evening. She goes,
Wait, is she saying it as a recent thing? Because years and years ago,
well,
she did.
so,
she said
I don't know.
that.
Here was the response. So tell me if this is the same response. So Elizabeth says, Santi, we're supposed to get married. And Santi goes, okay. Does it have to be right now? Was that the same?
That was yeah. That's an old story.
Okay.
It was
I
probably
might
like
be-
3 or 4 years
I
ago.
might be busy this weekend, so
Okay.
maybe.
Do we have to right now?
The best answer for marriage is from John Paul II, though. Esther asked, wants to marry John Paul, so I tell him, like, heard Esther was going to get married with you. And he goes, yeah, she better do it soon, though, before I go to space. Because once I'm in space, I'm going to be a Mandalorian. And after that, there's no going
There's
back.
no hope.
There's no going back.
That is perfect. That is perfect. Out of the mouth of babes.
Your
right?
call.
What are you gonna add to that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You better do it soon before I go to space.
Yeah.
That's right.
So once I go to space, I'm gonna be Mandalorian, and you know there's no turning back.
It's going to be over. Oh, it's so funny.
That is hilarious. John Paul is super funny.
He is. He is so funny.
He'll give these very specific answers, like very well thought through
Yeah.
answers.
Let me tell you, Dad. I've thought about this, and when I get back from space,
It better happen quick.
right?
All right.
Clock is a ticking. That's hilarious.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. I'm talking to David Williams, father, husband, Catholic.
That's right.
We're talking about communicating. We're just riffing on fatherhood, really.
We
That's
are
what I'd say.
riffing.
That'd be also a good show title, riffing on fatherhood. But
I like it.
synodality on fatherhood. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty good.
That's pretty good.
yeah. I agree. That one's better. So we're talking about communication.
Yep.
Basically, we're talking about my problems with communicating with my children, this is a great therapy session for me. I don't know how much I'm going to owe you guys after when we're done, but just, invoice me or whatever.
You can't afford it.
So as you get older, I can see how that, you notice, like, hey, children are dealing with an issue. You want them to come to you.
Yeah.
What's the balancing act here? And this is I understand there's probably not a rule, for this, because it's going to be so different with each one of your kids. But if
Right.
you have any advice for me, I'm desperate to hear it. Because I just want, basically, I want my children to know that I love them.
That's right.
And that, I will always be there for them,
That's right.
and that there is nothing, no matter how terrible it is, no matter what mistakes they've made, that, they can always come to me
That's right.
for love, right? That it's unconditional.
That's
right. There might, of course, be consequences for some things, but that's not because of me. That's just because of reality. You
That's
know?
right.
So what do I do? Tell me.
Well, so sometimes what helps me is to think about the way that God the Father responds to me, right? So there's
I like this approach.
there's nothing that we can take to him that's going to surprise him, but we like to think that,
Yeah.
right? We like to think that we've got something that, oh yeah, I just want to let you know that this is going on. He's like, oh, wow, I had no idea, right? What? So let's look at prayer, right? We go to the Father, and we think, and I'll make my own personal confession here. Oftentimes I go and I think I've got to have it in a certain way, approach him, throne of grace. Just want to make sure I appreciate everything you're doing. It'd be super cool if we could work out there, help me be more patient and all this. And we kind of have our lists and everything, and we get in. But we oftentimes don't stop. And I say we, I should just say myself for now. But oftentimes I don't stop and just talk to him. So the same desire that you have, that you're that sounding board for your children, same desire that I have, that you have, that we're just there for them no matter what, even if what they're saying is absolutely ridiculous, even if it's unsubstantial and it has nothing to do with reality. It doesn't have anything to, God the Father would never refuse a conversation with us that had absolutely nothing to do with, anything that made sense.
Right.
And so as men, I think sometimes we don't go to we get all prim and proper sometimes. And I think, it can be to our own detriment, right? Because we kind of look around the world and go, well, where can I, our family life is so busy, and sometimes we have that opportunity to share, all those things with our spouses. Other weeks are like this past weekend with Thanksgiving. Everything's busy and crazy, and we got to catch up with our spouses now because there's been, lots of family and friends in town and all that. But then are we going to the Father and just, this is what's on my mind, right? So then with that image, you think about your daughter, right? And she comes to you. And our tendency sometimes as men is to just like provide the answer, like tell me everything so that I can solve it for you.
This is the establishment. We're going back to
I
establishment.
know
We're going
the
back to
answer.
establishment,
I know the
right?
answer.
But what we have to establish, and I think I'm going to key in on this word, is empathy, right? And oftentimes that word is not always associated with manliness or manhood. But what I mean when I say empathy is this, to the point where you can listen and just shut up and listen. Mm-hmm. And then have the only thing you say be, hey, sweetheart, I just want to let you know, thank you for sharing that with me. It really means a lot to me. Is there anything, what else do you want to say? Sweetheart, really means a lot to me that you shared that with me. I'm going to take some time and I'm going to think about that, and I'd like to talk about this some more. Or tell me, what do you mean by, what do you mean by none? Or what do you mean by, what do you mean when you say that you want to do this? When you say grandpa's, tell me more about that.
Because God told you. There's a lot of words I'd like to define.
Right. So then we like to go, well, hey, I'm reading the spiritual, I'm doing all this stuff. I just read Aquinas, and that's actually impossible, and here are the reasons why, and blah, blah, blah. Right. But that's not the point.
I answered
Right.
that.
Right. I know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
Right. This is easy. But really just to say, hey, I really want to let you know that I appreciate you sharing that with me. Mm-hmm. It means a lot. And then standing up and giving them a hug. Like that is enough. If we think about the conversations that might precipitate after that, those could potentially get more down to the solutions and more down to if there's correctives or if there's opportunity for instruction.
Yeah.
But more often than not, if we want to open up that channel of communication, again, this is, as I'm sharing this, I'm thinking about all of my children and all the desires that I have for my relationship with them, and the lack of time sometimes that there is, or I go back and think, oh, I wish I would have done that conversation a little bit differently. Almost always it comes back to, hey, David, if you would have kept your mouth shut a little longer.
Yeah.
Right? If you would have just listened and nodded your head and took it in and repeated back what you heard to make sure that you understand, showing them that you care more about spending time with them than about solving their problems. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that's where that third piece of advice that I got from that gentleman is not just praising them in that culture, but also making sure that you're communicating to them that, hey, of all the people in the world that I'd rather spend the most time with, it's your mama and it's you, mm-hmm. right? You are literally the apple of my eye, and we can communicate that with our empathetic response, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's just a point of conviction for me. Lately that I'll pass along to you is in those moments, can we invoke that empathy and just say, sweetheart, I really, really appreciate you letting me know. Is there anything else that I have a question about something you said that I thought was really insightful. I thought that was brilliant what you said there. Can you tell me more about that? Mm-hmm. And you just sit there and listen, just like God the Father, like he's sitting there listening to us. He's like, he knows, but that's not the point. He's just there for us always. And I think that's that would be the way that I would, answer that particular one is. And I think that's where the struggle with, having time, like we're providing and we're protecting and we're doing all this stuff out there always, but do we have the time to establish these lines of communication? Right. I mean, I think that's how we kind of bring all this together is making that a focus.
So how do you like make that time? I think David does a really good job. He has adoration hour at 5 p.m. From 5 to 6 on Mondays, and so he takes one of his children with him, and then they go out and have a little like daddy-daughter date or whatever right afterwards. I think he does a great job of that. But as you keep getting having more kids, it gets tougher and tougher to have those times with one-on-one? How do you do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's and you're asking some of that isn't it, again. I have to keep saying this like it's like every day. It's like every day's a new day. But like walks, right? Just hopping out. It's like, hey, you want to go grab a catch? Let's go play catch for a little bit. You may not have any serious conversations while you're playing catch, but you are taking 10 minutes out of your day to do something with that boy, or to do something, like my daughter, hey, let's go out and look at your flowers together, right? There may not be anything substantial that you share, except that you're making purposeful time to spend with that person, right? And so week over week, those moments can turn into those formation, moments where you say, hey, how's everything going with your day? Or, hey, what did you think of the homily from this morning? What thoughts did you have? With 7 kids, it's tough to find those alone moments. But with a walk, hey, let's go outside for just a second. Let's find some sort of excuse to do something, just one-on-one together. It could be a game. It could be hey, pop into my office real quick. 30 minutes at the end of every day. Like one day, one kid a day. If you're working from home, you've got a chance to do that. And again, I've had moments where I've been able to do that, and other moments where I haven't. But the point is getting back to how we started it. They're seeing you constantly trying to spend that time. So there are some good ideas that I've seen out there, like the holy hour is awesome, right? Because then you got just special time with Jesus, special time with Daddy or Mama. That's actually something that I need to do. I think that's a brilliant idea, right? But ideas like that, I think, week over week, we've even thought about having like a monthly, like, hey, it's time, just time with Mom and Dad. We're going to go grab some lunch together on a Saturday and spend some time together. The propensity though that I have is when I finally have figured out how to craft that moment, I want to pack in all the words of advice I have.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I
And that's the trick.
Yeah.
Is like oftentimes
That's exactly what I
that's
felt.
not the recipe.
I did that with Jude just the other day. It was
Right?
his birthday. I was like, let's go wherever you want to go. We're going to have lunch. He goes, like, let's go. He wants chicken. We stopped off and we're eating chicken. I was like ready to just unload all these things on him.
Right.
And
You didn't bring a notepad?
Let me get you ready for life right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's so hard to bite your tongue in that moment. And just like he's not asking for that.
Right.
He just wants to spend time with me. And
That's right.
It's very hard to bite your tongue.
It is, and I think that it goes back to that empathy piece, right? Is that we want to create the opportunity for them to not just feel close to us, but to be close to us. And then when those moments come where we say, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I love you," that may be all that you have to say in that 30-minute moment, and that is worth its weight in gold for their behavior for the next week, right?
I tell you what, talking about all these things has just made me so grateful to have struggles with my children like this, just because it just gives me insight into the Father's love for me.
That's right.
Right. That I have these desires for my children. Like, I want just to love them, right? I just want them to come to me.
I know.
Right? And how much more is the Father have these? I mean, this times a billion, times infinity.
That's right.
All right. Just praise God. God is good.
God is good.
We've run out of time on the radio. Go check us out on the podcast. David, on the podcast section, I want to ask you, like, one of the toughest things as a father that you've encountered that you didn't think you were going to encounter when you first started becoming a father.
Get ready for that.
Ooh, sounds good.
Tune in on the Catholic Mantra. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.
Cheers.
Yeah, so that's why that's a question I wanted to ask you this evening, was that you've played this father game a lot longer than we have, right? And so,
like most unprepared for, or is that what you're getting at?
Like you didn't realize this was actually going to be a hard thing that I did not think I was going to have to encounter, or like that I thought was going to be hard as a father.
Yeah. Well, I think I alluded to it a little earlier.
Puberty.
Right.
It's the smell. Okay.
Well, and I have to give my wife a lot of credit for how effective I am as a father, because like she did something that was really brilliant. She she worked with the boys, and she, when they were like 11 and 12, and she said, just so you know, here in about a year, you're about to get really stupid. I just want to let you know, right? You're going to think that what you're saying is genius, and it is not going to be genius at all. I just want to give you a fair warning. So at their age, they were like, okay, okay, like seriously,
Wow.
we're prepared. And
They're
so
probably thinking, like,
when those moments come, their mother and the father look over, and she's like, I told you, it's happening right now. And they're like, okay. Right, this is okay. There's a lot of physiology going on right now. This is just a normal, nothing wrong with me. This is okay.
They're going to their siblings
We're
like,
good.
Mom said something so weird to me today.
You're about to get really.
I've never heard her say.
Genius.
What is
She's
the?
always telling me I'm
right?
smart.
But what is it? When I was 17, I couldn't believe how dumb my dad was. But when I turned 24, I was amazed at how much he learned in the last 7 years.
Yeah,
or something.
exactly.
Who said that? It was like, yeah, like I think
That's
Mark
hilarious.
Twain, Mark
I
Twain said that.
remember having a moment in my life where I was like, you know what? My parents have been right about everything.
Everything. Like, whoa, how did that happen? So I think the biggest.
Yeah, exactly.
So the biggest surprise. So again, I have to give my wife a lot of credit for my effectiveness as a father. And I think that goes without saying, is that we can rely on our wives to give us insight, right? So we don't have to do this by ourselves. They are right there. Like our closest confidant, the one that's actually probably seeing it better than we are, right? In a lot of ways, we can go to for advice. Hey, I need to talk to so-and-so. Do you've been with this person for the last 4 straight days, unceasingly.
Right, yeah, like constantly.
Like this is the person that is spending the most time with your children
Yeah.
during the week, particularly, right? Are we going to our spouses to get advice? And I have never run into a situation where, my wife was unwilling to share with me the insights that she has, because that is part of their vocation.
Yeah.
This is the sacrament of holy matrimony, not patrimony, right? So the wives see it, right? So we should absolutely go there to the well and make sure that we're pulling from the reservoir. But then I think the biggest thing that caught me off guard, and I alluded to it a little earlier, was how much I associate my own identity with the output or the attitude or the decisions that my children make. Disassociating the decisions that they make about what they say and do and think from me. So then oftentimes my knee-jerk reaction to say, what are you saying? Why are you doing that? Right? Is more selfish, because I don't like the way that makes me look as a father.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Kids will humble you so quick.
Right? Ooh, I don't like that. That's not good PR for the Williams family right there. You better watch, right?
Yeah.
So on and so forth. So in those moments though, we objectify, the relationship, because now your attitude, the way you behave, is directly associated with the way that I want to be perceived by my friends,
and
or by the
your
public, or
value
whatever.
is your behavior.
And my value is your behavior, right? So they need to be able to know that you are your own person, whether or not they behave well or not, right? As a good piece of advice from another family that I interviewed, and because I like to ask this question too, like, hey, how'd you guys do it, right?
Yeah.
Was, hey, if they turn away from him, and God forbid that they do, our goal as parents is to make sure that they know the person that they're turning away from. But my identity as a Catholic, as a man, as a father, is strong and it's solid, regardless of the way that they decide to lead their lives. Now, that seems somewhat controversial, because, of course, the hope for all of us is that all of them are in heaven, including us someday.
Right, but they have to make their own decisions.
But they do have to make their own decisions. It's back to that whole don't yell up the stairs, piece of advice. It's like, hey, we respect that, but if you're going to turn away from him, my goal as your father is to make sure that you know who you're turning away from. And, if we do a good enough job helping them fall in love with Jesus,
that basically sums up everything, that who it is.
Right.
Because you do. That's establishment.
Right.
That is the establishment part.
Right.
That's right.
You're going to make your own choices. That's what I'm establishing you
To make them.
so that you make your own choices.
And make them well.
But at the end of the day, they're your choices.
They're your choices.
They're not my choices. I can't make the choices for you.
That's right.
I'm establishing you to make your own choices, and they're going to be yours. And no matter, and like, if I do my job well, you know who it is you're rejecting if you choose to reject them. Whether it's Satan or God the Father, right? Or the world, the flesh, whatever. Like, you're gonna reject something.
That's right. That's right.
And so you need to know what it is and who it is you're rejecting. primarily God the Father.
That's right.
You know,
So I think the thing that I didn't anticipate was the anger, the unjust anger that precipitated from the association of their actions with me as a person, right? If
the
you were to-
anger
if-
from your
anger
like within you.
within me, right? Is because it's like, well, if they behave poorly, then I must have done a poor job as a father, right? If they're not thinking the things that I want them to be thinking, or that I was told that they should be thinking based on the book that I read from Aquinas, then I'm gonna take that on and take it personally, right? That I have failed, right? And so in those moments of unjust anger and sinful anger, right? That's been the biggest surprise, is going, oh wow, you step away from that and you examine your conscience and you bring it before confession and you begin again. But when you step away from that and you realize, oh wow, I am tying two things together that shouldn't be tied together here, right? I think that's been the biggest surprise, is going, man, I thought I was more sure of who I was than obviously I am playing out to be here. And so then the challenge for me now is, wow, I'm getting older, supposedly supposed to be getting wiser. I'm deeper in the game. You're asking me for advice because I'm deeper in the game, but it's almost like that moment for Aquinas, like, hey, it's all straw. Like I thought I knew, but I have seen I am completely at the behest of the grace and the mercy of God here, right?
Yeah.
So then the more time that I spend before the Lord in humble adoration to say, I cannot do a good thing without your help. I know nothing. I am a husband and a father and a Catholic, and I'm supposed to be a good father and a son and a spouse here, and I am failing miserably on my own knowledge and understanding. I need something different to happen here. So in those moments of humility, when I can go before the Lord and go, okay, God, I will let you control this conversation. Empathy, I will listen. I will not be as prone to lend my advice and my age, even though I'm getting gray hairs now, like the less I know, right? The more I can kind of take that on, the better I behave in those situations, right? And so I think that's probably been the biggest surprise, is if you would have interviewed me 15 years ago, I'm like, I am like the kindest, most soft-hearted guy. Like I'm like a puppy. I would have described myself as like, I don't have an angry bone in my body. And unfortunately, my family has seen moments that would prove otherwise. And so the journey for me, and being honest with my own children, has been, hey, like in those moments, you go to the confessional, but in those public moments in front of the family, it is absolutely okay to go individually and say, hey, contrite before, contrition. And I think the same person that gave the 3 pieces of advice earlier, this is one other piece of advice, because I went to him with this issue too, and he said, if you are not willing to apologize to your children for a moment of indiscretion, whether it be anger or something that you said, or you raise your voice too much or whatever it is, if you can't go to them with that, don't ever expect for them to share the deepest longings in their heart. Don't ever expect them to open up that channel of communication. Do they see contrition in you? And that's not, and it's a real apology. It's an eyeball to eyeball. Hey, Daddy, I wasn't patient. I should have been more empathetic, but I wasn't. And I'm very sorry. Will you please forgive me? And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't ever happen again. Right. And then you got, they're right there. So you better improve. Right. Because they're gonna call you on it, right? So I think that's been the biggest surprise for me, to answer your question. It's a really good question, and I'm just sharing as honestly as I can.
Great.
Like that's been the biggest surprise, is that anger of feeling, and again, the anger comes from like feeling like you're not doing enough, feeling that like you could be a better guy, you could be a better dad, And so I found, like, just giving that to the Lord at the beginning of the day, particularly, and saying, hey, I can't be a good dad or a good husband today without your help. That's it. It's like St. Philip Neri. I will sin today if you don't help me, Lord. Like, it's going to be bad.
You
if
can,
I don't have your help.
I guarantee it.
I guarantee it's going to be bad if you don't help me out. So those moments where I can remember that and start the day that way, I think that's been the, that's been the area that I've been, focusing on the motor. So hopefully that, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
that's a
that's
fantastic answer.
yeah.
I want to circle back to just one thing you said about talking to your wife about getting insight into how we should behave. I just think that is so true. Women just have a deeper intuition. In fact, they have an intuition into the lives of our kids that just men don't. Okay,
You're acting like we have that,
right? It's like, do we have
deeper?
it?
Like you're qualifying,
right?
this.
It's like,
Right.
it's like I see on the outside things that they do,
Right.
And one thing that I have done that I just think is a good practice. We talk about prayer hacks sometimes. You're just like, I've never thought to pray for that. I try to make a regular habit of praying for the intuition of my wife.
Yeah.
That's
good.
Asking the Holy Spirit to give her a deep insight
and clarity
into the interior lives of our children.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of her gifts. That it's not one of my gifts.
Right.
I could pray for it, but it's just not one of my gifts as a father.
Right.
Like it is for her. I mean, for her, it's more second nature. So that's something I try to make a regular habit of doing, so that she can have those things.
Yep.
Because I think that there's kind of a trap, mental attitude about us fathers saying, I'm the head of the family. I'm the one who decides things. And that means I don't ask for advice.
That's right. Right.
And that's a total lie. That's not it at all. A general in the Army asks for advice from lower ranking military officers all the time. And that doesn't mean that they're any less in charge.
That's right. And I would even argue, especially when it comes to discipline, because we like to think, well, I'm the one in charge. I get to decide what the discipline is for my boy. Right. But it's like, hey, I'm going to have a conversation with your mother about your discipline. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Oh man, let them
let them
simmer on that for about 5 to 10 minutes. Get a second. We're going to have a private conference.
You weren't nearly
here.
this sweaty when I left you.
Right. But that's powerful too, to say, hey, this is what happened. You were with this child for the entire day, right? And so this is what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is appropriate? Right. And then she can adjust the bar too. Ooh, I don't know about that. Or maybe we need to wait till the morning, and so that's another if I can remember that usually pans out a lot better than the whole you're going to be camping outside for the next 35 days,
this is something you're going to regret.
This is something you're going to regret,
This is the whole importance, though.
They would probably love that, by the way.
They'd be like, sweet. Yeah,
I'm stealing money from your wallet more often.
That's right. That's right.
But this is the importance of having your emotions tempered when disciplining.
Right.
This is something that I have, continually struggle with. Is when I am in, disciplining my children, to not have my emotions high.
Right.
It's a huge struggle. So you can think logically. So you can see clearly.
Give yourself a pause.
Right. So you can give yourself a pause to make sure that you're the crime fits the punishment, and make sure that you're not.
Because otherwise, everything's a spanking.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's no timeout around here.
Well, and my kids will laugh when they're probably watching right now, but I usually come up with an odd number. Right. We've been talking for the last 17 minutes about this. Or this is the 7th time, and it's always an odd number. And they reminded me of this the other day.
Usually prime, too.
Yeah, it's like a prime. It's a prime number. It's usually a prime number that I give them. For the last 9 minutes and 37 seconds.
Right,
We've been talking about this, right? So in those moments of heat, that's the double effect of saying, hey, I'm going to go talk to your mother for a second.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a chance to cool
right.
off. And then the other thing, too, I think that helps me anyway, is the kids are to bed. To have a debrief time where you sit down and talk about the children, or if you have, multiples, and you may not have time to talk through all of them, but hey, are there 1 or 2 conversations that we need to have about what happened during the day, and how can we work on formation tomorrow? But a lot of the time too, it's, hey, how did you think that went whenever I handled that situation with so-and-so earlier tonight? And opening up yourself to the advice for your own formation from your bride. Ooh. It rubs up against what we think we ought to be doing as men. We should know the answers here, but to say, hey, what did you think could I have done better in my response? Did you sense a greater deal of anger than even I, because sometimes we're a poor judge.
And you better be ready for the
And you better be ready for the answer.
Right.
More often than not, the answer is going to be,
maybe take you off guard.
a formation opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Because our spouses are also brilliant advisors for our own formation too, right? And that's the other piece of this, right? So again, we are, back to just being thankful to the Lord for giving us this chance to hang out with some amazing people like our spouses and our kids, and and then the retroactive component of what they teach us, what they reveal to us, and my kids, as they're getting older, are spurring me on to holiness in ways that it's like, wait, I thought it was supposed to be the other way around, and it's like, oh, it's coming right back at me,
This is the establishment.
and
part.
this is the establishment part. It's like, ooh, this is a cool,
great.
it's a cool machine here.
Yeah, that means that you're doing something right. Like you're establishing them where they're pushing you now for holiness.
Right.
This is ideal.
When my kids were your all's ages, I had one guy that was really struggling with like paying attention at mass, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna share a little bit of my struggle with paying attention at mass with him, and I said, hey, Daddy, during certain parts of the mass, I start to think about a lot of things, work and things. I need to be focusing on Jesus. So if you can help me, because anytime I see somebody holding their hands like this with their fingers pointing to Jesus, it reminds me of what I'm supposed to be focusing on. And I really want to be focusing on Jesus. So is there any way that you can help me focus more on Jesus by putting your hands like this and pointing them toward Jesus? It would really help me a lot, right? For that kid, I mean, mission control. Like, they were on it.
No, you don't understand. I need to help my dad.
I am helping my dad get to heaven right now, right? So again, that was
if I don't do this, he's totally lost.
that was particular parenting for that little one, right?
That's
but it
great.
was like, hey, this is a huge help for me, because if I look over and I see your fingers pointing that way, it is an instant reminder for me of what I should be thinking about. And again, within that, and it wasn't just a ploy, like legitimately, I do get distracted. And when I look at my kids and their hands are like that, I'm like, oh yeah, I got it, right? So it wasn't just a ruse, but boy, that kid's been locked in ever since. We're
nice.
We're good. we're helping Daddy get to heaven, right? Which is the whole idea here. It gives back.
I started with Santiago a few weeks ago. We've been working on bowing to the name of Jesus during Mass. And one day he just started talking on my arm. And I'm just like, what, Santi? He goes like, you forgot to bow to the name of Jesus. For him, it was more like a half competition. Like, I want to outdo my dad. And I'm like, well, thank you for the reminder. But did you bow?
That's right.
He was like, no, but I didn't see you bow either. So it's like, we were talking in the middle of Mass. Just
That's
like,
right. It's like, we bowed, but I did not see the deacon bow, just for the record. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? I mean, you teach them that, and then they start watching for it. And now we're on. Like now we're in the we're in the accountability seat for sure.
Pretty sure the deacon doesn't even love Jesus.
well, I
went through the entire creed without
he only,
bowing.
he only bows like 70% of the time.
Yeah.
I told him.
For all the deacons out there, thank you for what you do.
We love you.
We love you.
I told him, Santiago, if for 5 masses straight, I look over every time you hear the name of Jesus and you bow, we will go to the store and you can buy any Lego set that you want.
Oh.
For 5 weeks.
Oh man. Locked in.
In a row.
In a row.
Yeah.
In a row.
That is tough.
That's
so
wow.
That is tough. I don't know if I'd be getting a Lego
I mean, you're
set.
watching
Like,
for it. He's probably like, just
Also,
waiting for that moment.
Sounds very expensive.
it will be worth it.
Legos
That
are
is awesome.
ridiculously
but
that is
But
awesome.
that's like, hey, I'll pay the money for a habit.
He will,
you
but
know?
see, but here's
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Like I'll buy a habit in my
I'll
children.
buy a
That's no
habit.
problem.
But what's
I
cool
don't think I
about
have
that?
Yes.
What's cool about that though is like he'll never forget that. He will always remember it, right? He'll never forget it, and he'll be 40 40 years old someday and be telling that story of,
Yeah,
you know,
if he actually does it and goes
if
to the
he
store
does it,
and
if he
buys
gets
it,
the Legos,
he'll-
that's the
yeah,
key.
if
That's
he gets
true.
the Legos.
If he gets the Legos, he'll get to the Legos. That's a great.
Eventually he will.
Can I be a
Yeah,
part of that
17,
too?
18.
I want a dad. I want a dad that can buy me Legos like that.
There
That'd
are
be
like
great.
some pretty sweet Legos these days.
There are.
And they have upgraded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
Oh, they
time.
are
They were-
super
They were
nice.
crazy.
David,
Yeah.
however, before we finish, I want to be
Yeah.
good with our host, with our guest.
Yes.
We want to be good hosts.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said you had some questions for us, and they have been bombarding you with questions to you.
Yeah, because I got problems. You know.
So,
Oh,
do
yeah.
you have any
But that's
questions for
okay.
them?
Well, I would ask this: is if you could pass along your top 2 things that you do as a part of your regular weekly, monthly, yearly routine. 2 things that you do that you are just so grateful that you have implemented into your life. So, you know, a lot of them you've put into this book, but even it doesn't, it could be something in here or something even extra biblical or extra living beyond Sunday. 2 things that you unregrettably have done that you will never, you know, let go.
I'll start off with one, and then you go, and then that gives me another a second.
Yeah, a few more minutes to
Yeah.
think about your number 2. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So the first one is, without a doubt, the prayer board, and we talk about it I talk about it in the book. But it has changed the way our family has prayed together,
Yeah.
and not only instituted being able to pray for one another, but being able to pray to the saints. We had Andrew Pudawa on our show a while back, and he gave us the idea of having a dry erase board right by the kitchen table,
Yeah.
because everybody's there, and it's an opportunity for you to you know to teach and to catechize and to you know just have a good quality time
Yeah.
and family time together. And so when I started doing that, and I implemented, you know, after everybody finishes eating, we all, you know, have a specific intention through a specific saint, and then we conclude dinner praying for those things
Yeah.
as together as a family. Not only did I get like beautiful insights into what my kids were thinking about, because they, you know, that's a prayer hack in and of itself, or you
It
know,
is.
a life hack, because you ask them, what would you like to pray for?
Right.
Well, ultimately, they're going to say what is kind of like on their hearts, you know, whether
Right.
it's, you know, super meaningful or not very meaningful, but at least you know where they are,
Right.
and what their thought process is. So it's not only do I got a chance to hear, you know, from each of my children, but being able to have my wife text me, you know, in the afternoon saying, like, by the way, I just want to let you know, one of your kids just prayed for the intention that you asked for last night.
Wow.
You know, those are the kind of things like, yes.
Ah,
You
that's
know,
so
like,
cool.
You know, it's connect, like it's working.
Good, because I really want that
You know,
thing.
like, you know,
That's right. It's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the fruits of
That's
that
awesome.
have been a lot for our family.
Well,
So
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So mine, like, people who listen to our show are probably getting tired of me talking about this, but just I want to talk about prayer as well. Several years ago, we did Exodus 90 for the first time, and it really changed my life. Absolutely. It was like, there's a lot of great things about Exodus 90, but it was the 20 minutes of silent contemplative prayer in the morning that just changed. It changed my relationship with Christ,
Yeah.
and I'll be eternally grateful to Exodus 90 for that. And so that has now become an integral part of like my identity, right? Like that I have a prayer life. I have a relationship with Christ
Yeah.
that I didn't have before. And that has really changed who I am. It's
Yeah.
changed the way I think about myself. It's changed the way I view who I am as a person,
Yeah.
right? Because I know him, and
Yeah.
like he knows me, and we talk every single day. And sometimes those conversations are really terrible because I'm like totally distracted the whole time.
Right.
I don't intend to be, but like that's the way it goes.
That's
you know.
right.
He like a child. He looks at me like a child. And is like, well, you know, like you're very cute and precious. You know, like with your
Right.
being distracted. But I was thinking, how do I when I discovered this authentic prayer life, I just desperately wanted to give it to my kids. What am I gonna do? I can't just give them my prayer life, right?
Right.
But one thing that I did was my oldest was recently, we did the restored order because we're homeschooling, and so she had her first communion and confirmation. And so I told her, like, all right, Elizabeth, let me back up. During COVID, they would, I was working from home, and so every day they would see me when they came out of the room. I would be there at prayer every day, and so it's now become a part of their life that they see Dad at prayer every single day. And I kind of orchestrated that on purpose, going back to like listening to John Paul II, giving his testimony about seeing his father at prayer and how influential that was in discerning his own vocation. Yeah. So I wanted to try to do that. So I put the prayer area in a place that they would see, not so that they would see me, but I wanted them to see me. Right. So the fact that they had seen me at prayer every day for years, when Elizabeth was confirmed, really made a big difference. Yeah. Because I said, hey, you're 7. I want you to pray every day. You're going to get up, you're going to go to the bathroom, and then you're going to spend 7 minutes in prayer because you're 7 years old. Right. Just quiet time. I'm not going to tell you what to pray. You can pray whatever you want. You can sing hymns. I mean, that's awesome. You can ask questions, but I encourage her to be quiet. And so she has been very faithful at doing that, and I feel like this is the most important thing I'm doing as a father, is awesome. Teaching her to pray. It's more important than teaching her to read. It's more important than teaching her to do math. More important than teaching her to do anything else in life is teaching her to pray. And in fact, just yesterday, she told me, Dad, I just want you to know, out of the last 3 weeks, I've only missed one day of prayer. I was on Thanksgiving, and I just, we woke up early, and I just forgot. And it's like, but other than that, I've been praying every day. Sweet. And it was like, it was just like, it brought.
You missed out on the Legos, but
You come here, and I'm going to hug you so hard.
Right, exactly.
No Legos for you, but that's okay.
I know earlier we said you couldn't get a pony, but we'll get a pony. Okay.
Ponies for everybody.
Right, exactly.
That is so sweet.
I have a farm now.
That's
so we
right.
can have
Yeah,
ponies.
exactly.
That's right.
So
that's so sweet.
The idea that we're a household of prayer, that I'm a man of prayer, and I want to pass on to her that, hey, look, Amen. This is what a man is. A man prays every day.
That's powerful.
And that is what a man is. And if you meet a man who doesn't pray, he's not a real man. He's a shadow of a man.
Oh my gosh. That's powerful.
So that's my number 1. I have no idea what my number 2 is. I hope you were able to come up with something, Adam.
Well, I had 2 thoughts. One was not as great or influence like impactful, I think, for our family, but one was, once my kids were able, we did the restored order as well, so once they were able to do that, we took a trip with them, and I invited my dad.
I love this idea. Yeah, this is really great.
My best friends, and had them join us, and so now you get to be a part of.
That's awesome.
Something big,
a rite of passage.
Kind of a rite of passage.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not kind of. It is a rite of passage.
In letting them be involved and they still talk about that to this day. But the other one, I think that has been more like concrete, influential, that I see an impact, every week. Yeah. And this is something that people who've listened to the show will get tired of hearing as well. But I taught my children, when they were young, how to be quiet in the home. That there are certain times we be quiet
with duct tape.
Right?
Yeah, and
right.
And zip ties.
No duct tape was used in the making of this quiet time.
No ducks were harmed in the making.
No duct tape. Yeah, that's right.
But we set aside quiet time where we all would just be quiet. And then that way, whenever we were at Mass, they were able to say, I know how to act.
That's right.
I know how to be quiet because I've been doing that at home, and now I can apply that here at Mass.
That's right.
So it was just a way of, I think, of setting my children up, for success. I can't expect them to be quiet in Mass 1 hour a week.
Right.
Without them practicing that outside of that 1 hour a week.
Right.
And so that really was a game changer, and it made me start thinking about, the virtue of silence.
Yep.
okay, what other virtues do I need to be doing, like doing this same, applying the same practice outside of just the silence aspect?
Right.
And so that was just a really game changer for me. And that's not a Einstein moment or any rocket science moment. Is that you have to practice the virtues at home so that way they do them, when they get out. And you establish them in the home so they go out and live those virtues out of the home. But
wait, you mean I shouldn't give my kids an iPad?
Well, I would not give your kids
Not
an
until
iPad.
they're 3.
Wow.
Not
Yeah.
until they're
Yeah.
3.
You know, guys, we actually had a question about that on the YouTubes.
On the YouTubes.
On the
multiple tubes of use.
YouTube.
Streams about like technology and particularly
Mhm.
what do you restrict when they are less than 10 years old and how much restriction is too much?
Okay, so
technology.
I want to throw something that immediately comes out, and I wish I would have actually used this as my number 2.
Mhm.
One thing that we have done with our children is we have instilled a rule that you are not allowed to look at anybody else's phone or iPad without first asking mom and dad's permission.
That's right. Looking over their shoulder. That's right. Yeah, because when you're at family events or friend
doesn't even
events or
matter.
whatever, it doesn't matter.
It does
Whatever
not
it
matter.
is. Yep.
And so, like,
It's a good rule.
Pamela
No.
came.
I was
I like that.
you tell the story because you know it, but I think you know it better than me. But this is such
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
I love I think you should tell it because
Well, so Pamela was,
my wife.
Yeah, Pamela. Yeah.
Yep.
Which we are.
Pamela
we
Niles.
hang out all the time together.
Yep.
We are everybody's very comfortable with everybody. Pamela's wanting to
We're like godparents,
yeah, godparent.
We're
Yeah,
kind of
like,
tied in. We
yeah,
do the show
yeah,
together.
We were but Pamela wanted to show Luke. Was it a picture?
Luke, yeah, it's like, yeah, he was going to show Luke a picture that she had taken of something. I don't remember of what.
Yeah.
But she said, "Luke, come here. Let me show you." And he goes, "No, I need to go ask my mom and dad first."
And it impressed Pamela
It's so
so
good.
much. She
And
was
it's
like,
not, and it's not because like it's not. This is not a controlling thing, but it's like, listen, people like have things on their phone that are
That's
not
right.
appropriate.
There's always
for your-
memes. There's always memes that people, hey,
Right.
check this. Yep. Here's
Right,
the
it's
next
like,
video.
you never
That's a
know, like,
good rule.
And like if you
I like it.
let them like start touching, they automatically figure out like how to go to the next
Yeah.
thing or like
and they want more. They can't control their appetite for that, like immersive experience. And Adam and Haley know that my wife, Pamela, is not going to show Luke anything inappropriate.
No.
But you know what? Luke doesn't know how to make those decisions himself, especially at the time, because this was a few years ago, but even still,
That's super cool.
and I think that's a fantastic rule. It's a practical application of, hey, you're a child. You don't get to look at a device unless I say so, and that's a rule. And if you break that rule, there are consequences, right?
Yep. For in answering this too, like we have made the decision that if there are devices, then there are devices, but they are family devices, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no individual devices in the home, and I have all the way up to 17, right? They will, I'm not worried about my 17-year-old figuring out how to, whenever he's grown and he's got to manage all this. Like we have multiple conversations about this, but for their time in the home, the devices that are in the home are guarded and protected family devices. So there's no this is mine, or this is this is my computer, this is my iPad, or anything like that. It's the family computer center in the home. We have an iPad, but it's it's locked for mom and daddy to open up, and that's it. Because culturally we don't want our lives to be about the devices. We have enough of the world that's crawling through those screens anyway at us. But I think so I guess for the 10 and under, there's absolutely not a moment where anybody under the age of 10 in my family has their own screen that they are devoting their time to, even if it's a reader. I think sometimes too the readers can be they're reading, it's like, well, but you can't like the physical turn of the pages and the smell of the book and
right.
I mean, you're
you could
missing
save
out so
yourself
much there
a
too.
lot of money.
That's right.
Like so much money, and just buy them books.
That's right. So so then when it comes to time, if it's an educational situation or if there's some sort of online thing that they've got to do for school, or they're practicing for their ACT or something like that, there's that culture of permission, right? Is I would like to do this, may I, right? Which again, translate that, you might think, well, that's really restrictive, and you need to give them more practice with dealing. Well, I'm not worried about them being able to figure it out. They can figure it out in 30 minutes. How to use a device. That's not the problem here. The problem is, is that culture going to help them to think about the fact of, hey, am I going to give myself permission to do this?
Yeah.
Right. So the 25-year-old version of these children, are they going to have that culture living inside of them? Right. That's the idea there.
And I just think I think that I might come across as extreme on this issue. I don't think it is, actually. I'm not being extreme. I think that I'm being actually very reasonable, that kids don't get devices. Kids don't get technology because that technology is not for them.
Excuse me real quick.
Right, exactly. That like you cannot give your child a cell phone that's their cell phone.
Right.
You just can't do that. In fact, I've already told my kids, I've told them this several times, and I'm going to continue to tell them, like, at least on an annual basis, just as a reminder, that all of you children of mine will be the last of all of your friends to get a cell phone.
Right.
And I take that as a challenge, Adam.
Challenge
Okay.
accepted.
All right. Like,
That's right. Challenge on.
like
That's
I'm
right.
totally fine with that being a challenge because
Well, on the day of your wedding, you promised God before the entire church that you would give a cell phone. No, you didn't.
Right.
Right.
No.
It was
Like-
that you would raise your children in the faith.
And in
right?
fact,
And
all
that's-
of the science
right?
and all of the evidence is on my side of the argument that the more you introduce technology and screens, actually the less you inhibit their imaginative thinking, like the less of a child you make them. Like giving them technology to where they like espouse themselves to it, where it's theirs and they use it and they get addicted to it. All you're doing is making them less innocent. You're like making them less of a child, and you just shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like you are the father. We're providing, protecting, and establishing. Well, this is like the basic thing, the protecting part. You can't establish if you're not going to protect, right?
That's right.
This is just, I'm kind of passionate about this.
Yeah.
But
Is that your number two, or do you have a?
no,
you
I have
number
a
two?
different number two that's like far less significant than this.
Okay.
My number two is something that we're doing that I think is really good, especially for young kids, about establishing financial prudence with your kids. Because when your
I
kids,
think that's significant.
when your kids are young, they get Easter baskets, they get money, if you don't do anything, all of a sudden you realize that your kids have like $300, know,
Right.
and it's like, how did you get it? It was like, I don't know, grandma gives me money all, if they just have a piggy bank,
Right.
before you know it, there's going to be a lot of money in there. So this is something that Pamela did in her family, so I got to give props to my in-laws, is that they had 3 jars. There was a spend, save, and share jar.
Ooh.
And so whenever they got money, it was divided up evenly, like as much as possible, like proportionally. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because you can't rip the $20 bill in thirds. But
People have tried.
right, you just
It
doesn't
just
work.
doesn't work
It's
out.
like,
Yeah.
you think you got $60 and you don't. You have $0. But just having that spend, save, and share jar. And honestly, what has happened in our family is that the share jar is the most popular, because they get a lot more opportunities to do something with it every week at Mass. Oh, I get to put it in the basket, right?
Right.
The save jar is boring.
Right.
You don't do anything with it, okay?
Unless you're saving for a huge Legos.
But that's the spend. The save is just to save, right? It's
The
just
fourth jar is keeping
it's
track of how many
just-
times I've bowed to the name of Jesus, and then
Right.
then you can cash those.
the
in,
save
right?
jar is just for you. Just look at it, get bigger.
So
That's
it's
right.
not like saved for long-term things.
no,
it's just
no,
like,
the spend you do not spend the save jar. It's mind blowing, right?
You actually
For me,
save.
like,
You're actually
you
actually
teaching how to
save
save.
it.
For me, spend is like candy money.
No.
Save is
No,
like
the
a
save
money.
jar is you save it. That's what you do with it. The spend jar you might let accumulate for a
That's
while
right.
before
Yeah.
you spend it. And occasionally we'll take them to the dollar store, which they think is the best store in the world, right?
That is the best
But
store.
anyway, there's a lot of financial prudence, I think, in these basic
right.
jars about sharing, because it's like from the beginning. as early as they have money, they learn to tithe.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. It's a good lesson to
That's
learn.
good.
So it's not maybe the most important lesson in the world.
Well,
Tithing is a big deal,
Yeah.
though. And if you accept that, because if you don't do that, and then you get your first paycheck, as an adult, it's
Yep.
really hard to take. Because in the beginning, when you're working, you're poor.
Right.
No matter who you are,
That's
when you
right.
get out of college or when you leave high school and you enter the workforce, you're poor.
Well, you're teaching your kids how to use a tool. I mean, money is a tool, right?
That's right,
So it's just
yeah.
like showing them how to use a hammer or how to use a particular wrench. You're just saying, hey, when you get this in, this is the way to manage it. Here are the
Right.
nuances, and here's the flexibility.
And
right?
it's an addictive tool. Money, we don't.
Right.
I mean, we talk about how
It's like
addictive
technology,
technology is.
That's
we,
right.
we actually don't talk very often about how addictive money is.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I may correct David.
Which one?
I
Are
think
you correcting me or David?
David. Don
Me.
David.
Okay.
Don David.
Because there's a number 2 you could have said for your answer that I have adopted in my life
Okay. Yeah.
that I think would have been a way better answer than.
Yeah, I told you. I said I don't think
Well,
this
let's
is
call
like.
it a
I
two
caveated. I said I'm not
Yeah.
sure this is the most important
about
thing, but this is what I'm going to say.
two-part do.
Because, and even you pronged at it, and I thought you would pick up, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I pick up for you.
I'm not very
Okay.
observant.
So at one point, David said, nothing in this house is yours. When you think about my technology, my screen, like when you think about clothes, toys, just like everything in this house is mine. And out of my charity, I share it with you. So how that at one point, we hope it becomes like image to the Heavenly Father. How it's like, everything I created is mine. I just shared it with you. And this has been the solution to so many problems in my house with like arguing toys. Oh, this is mine. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. This is mine. I decide what to do with this. I can put it away. I can share it with you. Or I can just, it can disappear because I do.
I can burn it in the
I have
fireplace
made
right
you
now.
the steward of this Nerf gun.
Right.
Yeah.
This elite strike Nerf gun,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's
Like,
right.
in Dune, we've read Dune.
Yeah.
And there's this part where it says like, you cannot own something unless you can destroy it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I put it to the test. It's like, this is mine.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
this has disappeared from this house because this is the 8th fight about this one
That's
thing
right.
that who gets to have it.
Let me remove the problem.
Yeah.
It's the day after Christmas. It's the feast of Saint Stephen, and you literally didn't have this until yesterday. And so, let me remind you where this came from. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
But you would not. I have 4 girls. You would not believe how many dolls I own.
Oh, I bet you own a
Personally.
quite a-
I personally own a
personally
lot.
own based
But
on that.
I've done that. It's like no.
Based
actually,
on that.
girls, you know what? You don't own a single thing in this house. I own everything
Right.
in this house, and I share it with you.
That's right.
And so I expect you to share it with your sisters.
And I would come up with an odd number, like 27 dolls. I own 27 dolls. It's a but that's not a prime number, though.
I
Yeah.
own
31.
I own all 51 dolls. I own all 53 tea sets, and I own all 59 of the blankets.
So listen to me. We're not going to be empathetic today.
But-
That's right.
My favorite part is when I ask them, like as a group, and like, I own this. I know. Why do I share it with you? And they answer in accord. Because you love us.
That's right. Because you love us.
Because
That's it.
you love us. That's the
right.
only reason why.
That's right. That's right.
Mr. Williams, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Yeah,
you for
it's a
having
This
us.
blast.
podcast
It
has
means
been
a lot to me.
fantastic.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Love it. One Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.